My grandmother was born in 1905, okay, in a little bitty town in North Carolina. She loved school. She loved reading. She went to a little one-room schoolhouse. And when she was 10 years old, raise your hand if you're 10. When she was 10 years old, they told her she had to quit school. How would you like it if they told you you had to quit school? Yeah, you'd be upset. Yeah, for a minute you'd say yay, and then you go, what do you mean I can't go back? So she had to quit school because they needed her to work on the farm. So she was heartbroken because she wanted to learn. So after working all day in the field, after everybody went to bed, at night she would write in a notebook by the light of the moon. And nobody paid any attention to her. Nobody said, oh, this is amazing. We're going to treasure these writings forever. It was like there's that crazy girl outside writing again. Nobody valued what she wrote, but she did. And I do not know how many notebooks she wrote, but she kept one for the rest of her life. And she lived for 87 years, and she kept that notebook all her life. And before she died, she gave it to my father. And she said, here, do something with this. And he said, okay, Mama. And so he gave it to me. He said, you're a writer. Here, do something with this. And I said, okay, Daddy. So he gave me my grandmother's notebook. And it was not, there was nothing in it that I could put into a book. It was the ramblings of a 10-year-old, 11-year-old girl, okay? It wasn't the great American novel. It was words and ideas and thoughts written by a little girl in a notebook, a school notebook in pencil. So I couldn't use anything from the story. So what I used was the essence of the story. The idea that there's this child who wanted to write so bad that she wrote in secret. And so it's her spirit that I put in the story. There are no actual words from her notebook in this book. Her name was Stella. She wrote by the light of the moon. So that's why I named it Stella by Starlight. The girl in the story is named Stella. And she also writes by the light of the moon, but not because she has this deep, abiding love of writing and she wants to express herself. She goes outside because she's flunking 5th grade and she's afraid that her teacher is going to tell her mother, and she can't master writing. She just hates it. She can't do it. And so she goes outside at night to practice her writing because she knows her mother demands good grades. And she thinks her parents don't know that she goes outside to write, but of course they know. And so Stella is 11, her little brother Jojo is 8, and they live on this little bitty farm. In 1932, okay, so in the morning, Jojo, how old are you? 10. You would go out and chop wood, okay? And you, how old are you? You would go out and get the eggs from under the hen. Did you know that when you put your hand up under the hen to get the eggs are warm? Do you know why? They just came out of the inside of a hen. That's why. They would go out and they would milk the cow. Do you know when you milk a cow? And you have a glass of cow's milk, do you know it's warm? Do you know why? It just came out of the inside of a cow. So I would go and visit. That little girl grew up to be my grandmother. And we would go and visit her house, in that same little house in that same little community, every summer. And so I learned how to milk cows and get eggs from chickens. And I didn't know I was writing a story about my grandmother. I was 10. I was stupid, I'm just doing I'm just hanging around my grandmother's house because I liked being there. And that's what we did every summer. So the memories that I had from her are from a long time ago, and I didn't even know at the time that they were going to be real memories. So I got to thinking about everything that I had learned from her, everything that I had learned from hanging around on a farm. I'm a city girl, okay? And hanging out on the farm, sitting around at night, listening to the old people tell stories on a Saturday night. They would all gather on Grandma's porch and sit around and drink lemonade. And then after midnight, it was way more than lemonade because those stories got good. And I would sit in the corner and hope that they didn't send me to bed, because those stories were good. And so I'd sit there and I'd listen. Some kid asked me, a fifth grader asked me once, so did you take notes on your grandmother? While you were listening, did you have a clipboard? Did you take notes on the story? No, I just didn't want to be sent to bed, and hope somebody would give me a cookie. So no, I didn't do any of that. None of this I was aware of. It was all going in, and I did not know that it was going in. I was absorbing this information. So when I started the story, I created a little girl named Stella, who is not my grandmother. And no, what happens here did not happen to my grandma on this page. None of this is true. What did I tell you earlier? I write fiction. What does that mean? I lie for a living. I make this stuff up, okay? So I made a little girl named Stella who happened to live in a town very much like my grandmother's town, who happened to sit around on a Saturday night and listen to storytellers, very much like my grandmother did, but this was all made up. This was all fiction. This was all created in order to make the story. So Stella is her own person with her own problems and her own issues, and what she figures out through the course of the story is, let me see what I can read to you. All right, let's see. Oh, there's so much that happens in here. Okay, I'm going to read the best chapter. Well, the second best chapter. Well, anyway, I'm going to read this one. Raise your hand if you are in fourth grade or fifth grade or sixth grade. Okay. All right. What would you do if your mom was injured? Could you save your mom's life? You ever thought about it? You ever thought about being a hero, what it would take to be a hero? Have you ever thought about being brave? Stella certainly hadn't. Okay. All right. This is near the end of the story, but it's a good chapter and it doesn't give anything away on what happens. It's after school, and usually they go to a one-room schoolhouse, okay? And usually the dog comes to meet the kids down the road as they're walking home from school. Okay. Today the dog came all the way to the school, and the dog is barking and acting weird. So the rain had stopped by the time school had let out, but the road was a muddy mess. The bigger boys tossed wet dirt balls at each other, while the younger ones made mud snakes and threw them at the girls. And so Stella's kind of bummed out because she didn't get chosen for the writing contest. She's not very good, which is more realistic than having her be the superstar and win the writing contest. So she's a little upset with that. But then the dog comes down. Hey, boy, Stella said, did you come to meet us? The dog barked as if he understood. Then he ran ahead of them, urgency in his yelping and the rapid wagging of his tail. The dog's acting peculiar, Jojo said. At that, Dusty barked again and broke into a trot. Once home, Stella leaped onto the front porch and flung open the front door. Mama? Papa? No answer. The house was empty. This morning, Papa said he was taking the mule. Jojo remembered. Yeah, but where's Mama? Jojo said. The dog, in his barking more insistent now, ran past the children and around to the back of the house. Come on, Jojo, Stella said. Something's not right. They chased after Dusty through the backyard, through the woods, and toward Kilkenny Pond. Jojo spotted her before Stella did. "Mama!" he shrieked. Their mother lay curled on the rain-soaked ground, not far from the jumble of dead willow branches. Several dark brown honey mushrooms spilled from her basket. As Stella approached, something moved in the undergrowth. Was that a snake? Stella felt an eerie calm come over her. She rushed to her mother and squatted beside her. She saw what had happened immediately. There were 2 small puncture wounds on her mother's left ankle. They bled just a little. Stella turned to Jojo, who'd started to cry. Slowly, she told him, "Go get Dr. Hawkins. Tell him Mama got a snake bite and it's bad. Now run!" Wiping his nose on his sleeve, Jojo dashed off. Stella turned back to her mother, who was blinking slowly. "I'm here, Mama. I'm going to take care of you. You hear?" Stella looked back to the house. There was no way she could carry her mother that far. She leaned close to her mother's ear and whispered, "I'll be right back. Don't worry." With that, she darted back to the house. She grabbed 2 old towels, her father's Sunday necktie, a half-full bottle of whiskey that she knew her father kept hidden under the bed, a faded dress she'd outgrown, 2 blankets, and a pillow. Then she filled a bucket full of clean water. It took longer to get back because the load was clumsy, the bucket was heavy, and she didn't want to spill. Her mother was lying just as Stella had left her, but she was trembling now. Her ankle was beginning to swell. "I'm here, Mama. I'm here. I'm going to try and keep you awake just till the doctor gets here. You hear?" Stella first poured the cold water on the wound, watching as the oozing blood turned pale pink. Mama's eyes opened wide, registering shock, but Stella just kept rinsing the holes in her mother's leg. "The next thing I'm going to pour might hurt a little more," she whispered, "but I got to clean it as best as I can." Stella had no idea if she was doing the right thing or not. She was pulling from a gut instinct she didn't know she had. She opened the bottle of whiskey, and as she sloshed most of it on her mother's ankle, her mother cried out in pain. Stella simply said, "Shh, it's going to be all right." Then she ripped the dress into pieces and wrapped it loosely round and round her mother's leg. She secured the bandage with her father's necktie, then bundled her mother in the blankets. Stella soaked a piece of the torn dress with the last of the water and placed it gently on her mother's forehead. There was nothing else she could do, so she snuggled under the blanket, wrapped her body close to her mother's, and held her tightly. It would be dark soon. Where was the doctor? Where was Papa? She began to pray. Boom.